What's going on, Cardinals fans, and welcome back in to the Brenden Schaeffer St. Louis Cardinals writer YouTube channel. Oh my goodness, Sunday at Citi Field, the Cardinals almost had it. They were this far away from getting their first series sweep of the season, and they came up a little bit short. 2 strikes on Harrison Bader, the former Cardinal, serves one into center field. Mark Vientos hits the home run just over the outstretched glove of Michael Ciani in the 11th inning, and the Cardinals lose it 4-2. Now, this is not the B-Schaeff Daily for the night, so stay tuned to the YouTube channel. You can hit the subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. It's going to be right about there. All right, so don't freak out that this video is only 10 minutes long or so. That's the plan for this one. We'll do the full podcast later on tonight. But I just wanted to hop on and give some instant reactions to this loss for the Cardinals. This game played out almost exactly the way that we said it would in B-Schaeff Daily on Saturday night when we mentioned that, my goodness, the back end of the Cardinal bullpen has been unbelievable to this point in the year. We put the ERAs on the screen for JoJo Romero, for Andrew Kittredge, and for Ryan Helsley. Those 3 guys, the trio in the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings for the Cardinals, basically made sure you got those first 2 wins at Citi Field. But we said Sunday's going to be challenging. You need one of 2 things to happen, or honestly maybe both, which is Lance Lynn's going to have to get deep into the game on Sunday, and you're going to have some of that B group out of your bullpen. The B relievers are going to have to come through in ways that they're typically not asked to do, because normally you've got option A, option B, option C for those late inning opportunities. JoJo, Kittredge, and Helsley, but those guys all had to be unavailable today. I didn't necessarily hear specifically that Ollie said it, but you knew it had to be the case with all 3 of those guys throwing on consecutive days. I said maybe an Andrew Kittredge because he only threw 11 pitches on Friday and 11 more on Saturday, but you knew this was going to be a game, especially if Lynn was not able to get very deep into it, that the other relievers were going to have to step up if the Cardinals were tied or ahead late in this game. Well, that's exactly what ended up happening, and lo and behold, you got the answers that you were looking for from some of those relievers. Ryan Fernandez was fantastic. You were probably hoping to only get 1 inning out of him. We said last night that even if this game is tied or you're up by 1, you figure the 7th inning might be Ryan Fernandez's to lose. Like, he's going to get that opportunity, as Ollie Marmol has been impressed with him in recent weeks, and he's been sort of climbing the ladder in terms of the leverage nature of the opportunities that he's been getting. You start out using a guy in blowout losses, and then you're down 3, and then you're down 1, or maybe you're tied, or you're ahead by 3 or 4, and you start to integrate a guy like Ryan Fernandez into the fold as best you can. Well, he has answered the bell and has done a marvelous job. Today was no different. 2 innings, no hits, no walks, 3 strikeouts allowed, and ends up coming in with a little bit of a tight spot there in the 6th because Lance Lynn, who was kind of cruising along, ran into a spot of trouble, and you see a relatively quick hook despite Lynn being at just 87 pitches on the pitch count. He maybe had more to burn in terms of pitch count, but the effectiveness to the eye of Ollie Marmol was depleted at that point in time for Lynn. So they turn to Fernandez, and it works. Ryan Fernandez gets through the 6th unscathed, and that's pretty impressive considering where the Cardinals were at that point in time. You needed to hold it right there, or the game had the potential to get away. Good swing there off of Lance Lynn, the home run by Francisco Lindor. Those are going to happen, but you start to take notice of that and say, okay, we thought things were cruising along here, but let's get the bullpen up and ready and see the way this plays out. They walk Pete Alonso. You have the pitching visit, I believe. It's listed as injury delay on MLB.com, but I believe that was when you had Dusty Blake come out to the mound. Single by DJ Stewart, and right there, Ollie says, all right, we're not going to take any more chances with this. We're going to go with Ryan Fernandez, get him into this game, and see if we can't hold it as 1-1. But then it's a heck of a job by Ryan Fernandez to get through the rest of that inning unscathed with a strikeout, a flyout, and then the line drive to Mason Wynn, which, yeah, if that one's hit not directly at the shortstop, it probably means more trouble. But Fernandez gets through it. He pitches a clean 7th inning with a couple more strikeouts. Really, really good stuff to where you can start to look at the circle of trust in this Cardinal bullpen expanding a little beyond those 3 guys. Kittredge, JoJo, and Helsley. It had to be done today, especially with Lynn running into trouble in the 6th inning. Like, ideally, he gets you 6 or 7, and you don't need to go as deep with some of the other guys, but that wasn't the case. But as it turns out, you really got exactly the performance from the bullpen you were looking for. And I know that might not be the way that a lot of Cardinals fans view it off the front, because you go, well, no, Liberatore gave up the game-winning home run, and so obviously, the bullpen didn't do its job. Come on now. 2 innings from Fernandez, who is probably, if you had begun the season, the last man on the Circle of Trust board to begin this season. And now he's risen up to where he was able to give you those quality innings, get you toward the back end. Gallegos comes in. It's still been a little hot cold for him, and working through some trouble with command there, walking a couple of guys, but he records 2 outs. Liberatore comes in, rescues him in that, what was that, the 7th, 8th inning at that point. And then Liberatore ends up throwing multiple innings, gets you through. He gets you through the 10th inning unscathed, and you're thinking, wow, he's a strike away from being able to win it. Misses his location to Bader. I'm reading this from Jeff Jones on Twitter, who covers the Cardinals for the Belleville News-Democrat. He was out there in New York. Libby said it was a mislocation to Bader, and also missed the spot to Vientos on the home run. He wanted the fastball up and away, out of the zone. Instead, a little too close to the corner, was able to extend through the ball and hit it out, as Ciani just couldn't quite hold it, couldn't quite bring it back into the yard. And the rest is history, as the Mets win the game 4-2. But you can't look at the way this Cardinal bullpen performed today and tell me that, oh, yeah, the bullpen, that was really the problem here. Fernandez's 2 innings, Liberatore coming in to rescue Gio, and then throwing another couple of solid innings himself before getting into the danger there in the 11th. Understanding that there's going to be a Manfred man on base. You get that automatic base runner. And it's just, they needed something from the offense. That's really the boils down to storyline of this game, is you got to do more in 11 innings offensively if you're the Cardinals. I know they scored the run in the 11th, and it comes on a spot where, Brendan Donovan gets that hit. Michael Ciani sort of has to wait to make sure. Either way, he ends up coming through. The Pop Warner sent him. He was going to probably score anyway. And maybe a moment that you could point to a little bit, and I'll be curious to see more of what the Cardinals fans say in the comments. Let me know in the comments to this video, and we might expand upon it for B-Schaeff Daily later on. But Donovan is in that spot, going to flash in front to make sure that they're going to cut off the throw, catch him in the rundown almost on purpose, guarantee that the run scores. As it was explained, and I'm reading this again from Jeff Jones's Twitter, Ciani said he had to freeze to make sure the ball gets through. Donovan then explains that once the runner freezes, it's his job to flash in front of the first baseman so he sees him, forcing him to cut off the throw and guarantee the run scores. That's just a way to play the percentages and go, look, if we get a guy thrown out at the plate, we're pretty much in trouble in this spot. I don't know, as Brendan Donovan, how quick Michael Ciani's going to make it home, because I'm running the bases myself, but I do see out of the batter's box that he froze. So at that point, that's the play that the Cardinals teach. Now, my one caveat would be, is there room to potentially change the situation, change the way you handle that for time, spot in the game, circumstance, and situation of who's the other base runner? Knowing that Ciani has the best speed on the team, maybe he could make it home, and you don't have to force the issue the way Donovan did. We'll never really find out. You could maybe try to line up multiple camera angles of it and see, but it's not the decision of Brendan Donovan in that spot necessarily to do anything different than what they practice and what they teach. I'm just wondering, because of, like, those are the examples and the circumstances that may make Brendan Donovan think, I'll make a different choice here than what we normally do. But then that's a guy kind of going rogue into his own, and that's part of its instincts, though, right? Like, he's got great baseball instincts. Maybe there's a spot there to where he can think in the moment, well, let's judge and decide from that split second of what I saw, can Ciani make it home without me kind of intervening and making sure I'm the sacrifice to guarantee the run gets home? He can maybe make that decision, but guaranteeing the run, I would agree, is generally the most important part. But I would wonder if it's at all different, knowing that the other team in the bottom of the 11th is going to get a free base runner too. So in many cases, one run's great, but you're really asking your pitching staff to pull a second Houdini, because both pitching staffs did it in the 10th inning. Runner on second to start for both teams. Nobody scores. Cardinals score their Manfred man in the 11th, but the deal is, in this spot, you know that they're going to get one too. If it's the 9th inning and this happens, love guaranteeing the run. It's the 11th inning, and you know there's a Manfred man coming from New York, and they're already in scoring position to begin the inning. maybe that's a circumstance where you do it differently. Clearly, the Cardinals teach it this way. And I understand guaranteeing the run and saying, let's get 3 outs and go home. Liberatore almost was able to do that. So it's one of those things where by the slimmest of margins, the Cardinals come up short in this contest. But I don't look at it and say, oh, it's the bullpen's fault. Now look at what the bullpen did successfully. For Fernandez and Gio to get a couple of outs and then Libby to come in and pitch. Liberatore was fantastic. Obviously up until the end where he gives up the game-winning home run for New York. That's a mislocation, but that's in his third inning of work. He had already thrown 3 complete innings. He goes 3.0 innings on the game, gave up 3 runs. One of them was the man-for-man scoring, so just 2 earned, both of which came on the home run there. Look, if he puts away Bader, game's over, and we're talking about hailing him as the conquering hero because that would have just been an unbelievable spot where the Cardinals, they, like I said yesterday on B-Schaeff Daily, they needed something like that. Something like exactly what they got from Libby, from Fernandez in this game, if they were going to have a chance to win, especially if you only get 5.0 innings from Lynn. Right? If he goes 6 or 7, you don't ask as much from those guys. But you knew JoJo was going to be down. You almost figured for sure that Kittredge would be. And you knew for sure that Helsley, after throwing 24, 25 pitches last night, his second consecutive day of work, that it just was not going to be an option to bring those guys in. So you had to lean on somebody else. The fact of the matter is those guys all came through, even Gio to an extent, walking a couple of guys, but didn't give up the big hit, didn't give up the hammer, and was able to get it close enough that Liberatore was able to come in, rescue him, and then do what he did for a couple innings until he can't figure it out in the 11th. He was so close to being able to do it, and he couldn't. But you're not typically asking Matthew Liberatore to get you more than 9 outs, right? This was going to be the circumstance, but it does trace back to what happened Saturday. It's why we spent so much time talking Saturday about needing to go to your marquee relievers because of the Arenado error, which turns into Sonny Gray having a big inning against him, gave up home run, obviously, walked an extra batter. All of these elements factored in. And you can even look at the home run, as we did yesterday, that Gray gave up to Pete Alonso and say, that's not a bad pitch. That's off the plate, good fastball location. Alonso is just an elite player that made an elite play in that spot. Turned the other way with the ball, hit it where it was pitched, and with the power that he has, we know he's a big, strong guy. I thought the comment from Chip today about how he's put 8 baseballs into the hospital so far this season, obviously a reference to his post-game comments after that brawl a couple years ago, absolute gold. Chip Carey has more one-liners than anybody in the business. Just really good stuff. But, those are the circumstances of what happened yesterday. Just baseball being played. The error by Arenado is a bad play, but we talk about how he's human. Those plays are going to happen. But if you make a habit of making them, you're going to see the downstream effect of that, maybe not in the same game, but it can come in other days. And today, you can make a case that it sort of did show up because you wouldn't have necessarily used the order of relievers that you did if you're Ollie Marmol today, if any of those guys from last night's 7, 8, 9 would have been available. That being said, we can extend the conversation even further and have a little more nuance to provide and say, heck of a job by the guys they did use out of relief today, but do you extend Matt Liberatore to a 10th out if one of those other guys are available? Probably not. Probably not. You probably are able to at least, at a minimum, bring in a JoJo Romero or bring in a Kittredge for 1 or 2 outs in the 11th. Whatever the case would have been, you're afforded that luxury if Arenado completes that play in the 5th yesterday. If, after he doesn't, Sonny doesn't walk the next batter. If Sonny's great pitch against Alonso isn't taken yard, which is not, we're not saying blame Sonny, terrible pitch. We're saying that's just baseball right there. And Alonso made a play and beat Sonny Gray at his best in that one moment in time. So it's all context to explain, all right, we set the scene going into Sunday. We knew that this could be the potential storyline if the Cardinal offense, that's the other thing that we have to talk about from today, doesn't end up doing its job to a full effect. And it didn't. It scored 2 runs in 11 innings, and you get 2 free base runners in the 10th and 11th combined. One of them scored. Other than that, you didn't score any runs all day. 4 total hits. We know that Quintana is a tough customer. But I look at this offense and say they just didn't do enough. 3 walks, 4 hits. That's 7 base runners, not counting the ones that you got for free in the 10th and the 11th innings. 1 for 12 with the runners in scoring position. So it's the popular take to either blame the manager or blame the relief pitching. And my take is that you can't do either of those things today. I thought Ollie once again managed a pretty good baseball game. He knew when to pull Lance Lynn. He knew when to, hey, put the stopper in this and see if we can't hold it when he's starting to deplete here in the sixth. He knew he would have to ask more of guys that haven't been asked to do these certain tasks, but it was inevitable. And hey, let's ask them and let's see what they're able to do and how they respond. Fernandez responds. Liberatore responds until you push him so far out of necessity that they end up getting the better of you. You wear down a little bit. You haven't been pitching that level of a multi-inning outing. I know he's a guy who's a former starter, but he hasn't been trained up to do that in recent weeks. It's been a month of the season that he's been a reliever. He hasn't, he started some games in Jupiter, but this is a different animal now that you're on April 28th. So for Liberatore to do what he did was great. They tried to stretch him a little bit further than, you otherwise reasonably would, but it's out of necessity. And he was answering the bell under some difficult circumstances and ended up getting beat in the end. But I don't pin this one on him. I certainly don't pin it on Ollie Marmol. I got a comment from somebody on Twitter who then he later deleted his comments after saying, I'm right. I said, no, you're not right. And what actually happened is this. Burleson pinch hits in the ninth inning for Ivan Herrera, who largely has not been performing offensively. And he was 0 for 3 in this game. I think he's like 0 for his last 15 or 16. He's going through it a little bit of a slump. And he's the starting catcher for this game. So when you put Burleson in, Pages is coming in defensively to catch. Burleson against Edwin Diaz, that's an at-bat that Herrera's just probably not going to thrive in. Burleson, one of the better contact hitters off the Cardinal bench, one of the better contact hitters on the Cardinal team, has a recent home run. Ollie Marmol's thinking, look, maybe, even with nobody on base and 2 outs, maybe you run into one in a more suitable matchup, lefty versus righty, and Burleson finds a way to get a lead. And then in that spot, maybe he does bring in Kittredge. Maybe it was, hey, if we get a lead, it's going to be Kittredge for the night. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not in New York, so I don't know. Don't put words in my mouth that that's what it was. But those are the sorts of things that you go, hey, these are critical spots in the game. Try and glean an edge if you can, particularly because, Ollie knows this too, if you go to the ninth inning and the Mets get a base runner on, and it's anybody with any modicum of base running speed, what is going to happen? What is going to happen is that they're going to try to steal a base on Ivan Herrera, who is something like 0 for 13, 0 for 14, stopping opposing base runners from stealing against them. And guess what? Leading off the ninth inning was Harrison Bader. If Harrison Bader gets a base hit or walks or hit by pitch, he is stealing second on Ivan Herrera at the end. That's the story. I'm not trying to minimize Herrera as a player. He's made very, very significant strides defensively. An area that he still struggles in is throwing out base runners. Bader steals second, and now you've got the winning run in second base. So if you're Ollie and you go, look, I think it's a twofer. I'm getting the best at bat that I can take against Diaz here in the ninth with Alec Burleson, and I probably want Pedro Pages in there to catch anyway because he does a better job of controlling the run game. So we're going to go to that, especially knowing that 10th, 11th, if we go that far, there's going to be a man-for-man on second base anyway. We've had some wild pitches with Herrera back there recently. 90 feet, if they're going to take it, they're going to earn it. That's what Ollie said earlier in the week about that specific defensive swap. So it's a 2-for-1. You're getting the better opportunity at the plate in the ninth, and in the bottom of the ninth, and any opportunity moving forward into extra innings, you have the defensive catcher behind the plate that you prefer. It was a good move. It was a sensible move. It was one of those small moves. It's not a huge difference-making move, but that's managing. That is managing baseball right there. And for somebody to comment, well, Ollie, it's Ollie's fault because Herrera calls a better game than Pages, and he wouldn't have called for that pitch in the strike zone that the home run was hit on, or the pitch to Bader. He would have called for a slider. Like, what are we doing here? Pages gets brought in for defense. Now, who's necessarily calling all those pitches? If it's the pitcher in that spot or the catcher, I think it kind of varies. And with the pitch comm, it's a collaborative effort. But regardless, that's just not the situation. So if you're mad at Ollie Marmol today, tell me why in the comments below. But I have given my best case as to why this was just one of those games that the Cardinals lost. And if you want the stat of the game, it's 1 for 12 with runners in scoring position. That would be the stat of the baseball game. You scored 2 runs in 11 innings. I know you had the lead in the bottom of the 11th. But when you look at the preceding events of what this bullpen was asked to do after what it was asked to do yesterday, because of some little things that happened in the middle of the game where you had to go to JoJo, you had to go to Kittredge, you had to go to Helsley for the second day in a row. You got to get that win yesterday. Yesterday was the one that they prioritized. Today was the one that you knew would be a little dicey if the offense didn't get it cooking. And they didn't. They did not come up with the day offensively against Jose Quintana that they needed. And despite all of it, because of how exceptional the bullpen was, not because the bullpen was bad, but because of how great the bullpen was, they were in a spot where they did have a chance to win it. And that was the moment that it faltered. If you wanted John King in there, or if you wanted Nick Robertson in there for the 11th, go ahead and put that in the YouTube comments. But I think you're being disingenuous if that's really your take. But I'll hear it, and if you have a rationale behind it, I'll listen to it. That's going to do it, though. I meant to go 10 minutes. I ended up going 20. I promise we will have another podcast later on tonight. Comment below if you'd like it to be a late-night live stream on Sunday night. I don't know for sure that we'll do that. The numbers aren't always great, and being quite honest with you guys, YouTube does not give a ton in the way of advertising money on live streams. It's just not. So it just kind of depends on the way the action goes. But let me know if you're interested in that sort of thing. I'll at least consider it, but it's going to depend on what we've got going on here at the house. But I wanted to hop on, 5 o'clock at night, give you guys at least something to get you through until late Sunday or Monday morning when you may wake up for your morning commute and listen to B-Schaeff Daily. You can also do that on Spotify as well, or just subscribe with the red button in the lower right-hand corner of this video, because all the content will be posted to this channel all summer long. Thank you guys for watching. We'll talk to you next time on the channel. Peace.